Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
We had such a fun conversation, so different than our normal conversations because we're really talking about art, music, and menstruation. And I loved the conversation and how it really is a cultural movement, and her song about hormones and how that's going to get released very, very soon out into the world in a broader way. And more people are going to hear a song titled Hormones. Like, I think that's just really cool.
Yeah, I love the bold embracing of that topic, right? Just to title a song Hormones takes a level of bucking the system that, is not something you typically see, especially in artists when they're just getting started, because it's intimidating, but it's amazing to see her step out in such a powerful way. And you guys listening are definitely going to hear somebody who's going to be louder and making bigger waves. I have no doubt. So I'm very excited to introduce an artist to everyone today that you're going to know soon.
Yes. She has lots of really incredible things coming up, especially the fact that she does her music in French and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so interesting. I love that. I love listening to music in different languages. It's so beautiful. It does evoke different feelings. And I'm really excited for everyone to kind of hear all three versions of her song.
Yeah, same. So yeah, without further ado, let's have a chat with Lynsea.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Period Besties. We have a fun conversation today. We have pop artist, singer-songwriter Lynsea with us, who wrote a song all about hormones. And we're excited to dive in, chat with her about what inspired her to write about hormones and talk all things women's health and periods and menstruation. So thank you so much for being here, Lynsea. We are so excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
So we always like to ask people at the very beginning to just introduce themselves, like who you are, what you do, how you got into writing and singing and all of those fun things.
Yeah, so I started writing songs as a child and then got really into sports, grew up in Texas, so was kind of just like a traditional Southern suburban family. And I just one day decided I just want to go write music. That's all I want to do. Sat my parents down, said, I want to go to this school in Boston. I want to graduate high school early and go study music. And that's what I did. So I moved to Boston at 17, studied music, met my husband there. We both graduated, and I had my degree in music business. So I ended up working in music business for a record label for a few years. And then after doing that, I really missed making my own music. So I left that job and kind of started trying to figure out how to make my own music again. Then the pandemic happened. So everyone and their dreams kind of got put on pause. So I found myself January 2023 really kind of aimless. And I decided I just need to start doing this again because I know it's what I want to do. So I started releasing a song every month just to create some discipline, some routine. And that's kind of what led me here. So I'm a little over a year and a half back into creating consistently, and I'm doing it full time now. And I've really found a love in blending my passion for learning languages and also songwriting by releasing my songs in other languages. So that's kind of the main theme of most of my releases right now. They're pop songs, usually love songs, but they also are released in other languages too.
That's fun. That's not something that you see often.
I love it. It makes it creates a new like challenge, which songwriting in itself is already this kind of like puzzle and challenge. So I don't know why I wanted to make it harder on myself, but I think there's something so powerful of bridging culture. And so when I went to Italy a couple of years ago and I met someone who was learning English through music, and he said, I asked him, well, where should I start if I want to learn Italian? Said, just start listening to all these Italian artists and exclusively listen to Italian music, and like you'll eventually catch on. So I just thought that really stuck with me, and I loved the idea of my music being a resource for people who wanted to learn languages. And learning a language is such a beginning step to learning a culture, and I really believe that if we all could appreciate and understand other cultures and people different than us, that we would have less issues in the world too. So
100%.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. My partner is French, and so I'm attempting, and that's exactly on my list of ways to start learning, is to just turn on like French YouTube channel, just start listening to. I mean, we have a ton of French music in the house, so it's like, all right, I think I just need to sit into it kind of religiously.
That's what they say to do with kids too.
Yeah.
Well, oh, and don't even get me started with kids. Kids absorb it so fast. It's so frustrating that, it can be a bit disheartening because you're like, well, I'm never going to learn as fast as these kids. But no, but your brain definitely it's just exposing your brain consistently. I mean, with anything, you have to give your brain a chance to actually catch on. But the fact that you live with a fluent native speaker is already a leg up, because
you would think that, and yet we try so hard where it's like, okay, we're going to do this every day. We're going to have this, one sentence we're going to work on, just start the day with. And then we both live lives, and then
right.
We don't, it's like,
I generally, for Spanish and French, my husband is such a trooper, but if we're going to watch something, we have to have either Spanish or French subtitles on, because I have to be able to walk away with learning one new word.
Nice.
Or I force myself to say random phrases that you repeat every day. I have to say it in other languages. So I made a rule for myself that I never say are you ready? I either have to say estás listo or vous êtes prêt. It's either you're ready in Spanish or you're ready in French. And now he knows those phrases because that's all. So I choose these tiny things. I don't know.
That's good. It's good. I'm at the point where I'm I'm going to just start putting labels on the kitchen cabinets and stuff, just so that it's in my face a little bit more. Because I think that's the problem, is it's not in the face. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
How did you come to write a song called Hormones?
Yes. I mean, most of my songs, at least the ones that I release for myself, come from some sort of experience that I've had, something that I'm learning. And I mean, it was a good segue with the languages. I do love learning. I tend to read almost exclusively nonfiction. I just love absorbing information and processing it, analyzing things. I love psychology. So I found myself at a place personally where I was having some health issues that I ended up linking to hormones. And so I entered into a few months of getting every book from the library I could, following every person that I could, just trying to learn what was going on with me. And it really changed my life, my cycle tracking and hormone education. How learning my body has solved so many health issues I had. So it was really impactful. And then just from thinking about hormones so much, I got an idea of, well, what if this everything that we feel and we think is actually just scientific? What if I'm not really in love? It's just that at the point where me and my husband met, my hormones were at the right chemical balance that his hormones were. What if this was all just a scientific chemistry experiment? What if love is just hormones? And so I kind of went down that track a little bit, just brainstorming that idea. And then I was like, well, whatever. I don't care if it's hormones. I love my husband. We've been together for 10 years. So it really wouldn't would that change anything for me? No, it wouldn't. And so I took that idea to my to my producer, they're like, so what if it's just hormones? And we decided to write on it and make something kind of cheeky and cute, not super serious, because that is something that I love to do. I love to take something that is like somewhat of a serious topic and make it approachable. So yeah, it came from a very serious personal experience to this kind of lighthearted thing that really every human experiences. They just aren't aware of, you know?
Yeah.
My favorite
That's
thing
so
about
beautiful.
music, you start in one place, but sometimes you end up in such a different spot that
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful journey.
Yeah, definitely
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
What was the reception when you even mentioned the word hormones with producers? I feel like even that word, right, gets a very visceral reaction from people. So what was that initial reaction? And have you noticed as you've been promoting it, any comments, anything that a common thread of responses, or has it all been different?
Generally, people are a little shocked, or they kind of giggle a little. They're like, what? This girl's got a song called Hormones. Or a lot of times when I'm playing live, I preface the song, or when I was promoting, before releasing it, like before people could actually listen to it and I was playing it live, I would preface and I'd give them a little spiel before I start playing it. And people generally would giggle in the audience. So it's like, I love actually playing it because I love the song so much. And I feel like people think it's going to be so much cheesier than it is, but it's actually just very fun. But yeah, generally people get a little bit of a giggle. And I think that goes to show exactly where in society that we put that topic. It's just something you don't talk about that makes you giggle. That's like, this isn't serious. This is about puberty, or, like people really don't know. They're not educated. They think it's funny, or they feel embarrassed, or, it's something that isn't super comfortable. So generally I wouldn't say it's negative, but it is kind of like it shocks people a little bit, and it makes them listen in a little bit more because why is this girl singing about hormones? No one talks about that.
That's why we started this podcast. Because
Really?
it's everything that you might not be talking about, but you need to know, and nothing is TMI. And yes, we laugh too, because we're like, yeah, this is a funny topic because it feels uncomfortable because you haven't talked about it. So there is going to be that giggling. There's going to be that feeling of just uncomfortableness. And then as you start talking about it, as you start listening about it, as people have a song called Hormones, right? It just becomes common words and knowledge, and then you're not going to giggling anymore. You're actually learning and taking that to the next level and helping yourself. So
Yeah,
I love that. That's such an interesting feedback that you're even getting and seeing from the audience. I like that.
Yeah, and my band is all guys. My producer's a guy, and I just love how they love the song too. So at first, bringing all of them the song, at first they're like, "What? Like how are we going to make a pop song about this?" But now it's just so fun to see a group of guys like really rocking out to a song called Hormones. So I love that there is like masculinity involved in the performance of it too.
Yeah, your next song should be called Period.
Yes, yeah. Menstruation, something.
Yes. I love that. I am curious about, since we're talking about performance, do you notice based on where you are in your cycle, how you show up and perform differently? Is your voice a little bit different? Your movement a little bit different? I would love for you to share with all of us how you're working with your cycle with performing.
Yeah, that is such a timely question too, because I feel like I haven't really been thinking of it in that way until recently. I haven't, as far as like my preparation for performing, because I was working full time up until 3 months ago. So I didn't really get a lot of time to think about how I was going to support my performance. I just got to go out and perform. So the last 3 months that I've had my full attention towards performing and making music, I've been able to plan better around my cycle and my music. It's not just, I just can put more attention to it. So yeah, this last performance I had, I was day 1, or like my day before my period. And I was just not feeling it. And I love performing, but I was stressed out. I was so anxious. So I just knew the whole day was going to be like a self-care day leading up to my performance. So I made sure that I napped. I made sure that I ate well. I took my time doing everything. I didn't rush myself at all. And I'm a meditator as well. So during meditating, I was reminding myself that I'm going to have to muster up some energy to actually like dance and perform. I'm probably not going to feel as natural to just be inviting on stage, and like my confidence isn't going to feel as strong. So I feel like there was a lot of mental preparation that I'm really grateful that I had the capacity and time to put in towards performing, because I think the show was great. And I think if I didn't have that space to allow myself, I just would have felt more awkward on stage. Because I've definitely had the shows where I'm like, I feel so disconnected from my body. I'm moving my arms, but I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, So I think those moments where we're in our cycle where we don't feel as maybe connected to our bodies, or our brains feel separate somehow, that having the space to create that embodiment is really helpful when you've got, 50 to 100 people, in my case, 50 to 100 people staring at you, watching you move your body on stage.
Yeah. I thought it was so interesting at the VMAs when Katy Perry, when she accepted an award, and she said, and I did all this, I'm day one of my period. And you see the audience, and everybody at first was like just clapping, and then they understood what she said and they were like, oh yeah. And then they were clapping louder.
I didn't see that. I
You
don't know how I
have to
missed
check it
that.
out.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
incredible. And I love that she used that platform and to talk about that. And she also did a really kick-ass performance. And I'm hoping she did what you do, and really like that self-care and really that time needed to prepare for something like that. I don't know. I probably will never be able to ask Katy Perry, but I thought it was just so
cool.
interesting.
No, I mean, I think it's so cool, because it's something that I feel like we've had to, I'm sure y'all have talked about this plenty, but as women, we've had to hide in professional careers because we don't want it to be an excuse. We don't want it to be this dividing line. But yeah, I need to go look that up. I think that's really cool. And with the awareness and mindfulness, nothing has to be different. It's just, I need to understand that my brain is completely different right now. So I can't expect to just go on stage and feel the same way that I did 2 weeks ago at my last show. And I have a show in next Friday in 2 weeks where I'm going to be, I think it's like on my ovulating day, if not like the day after. I'm like, I cannot wait to be on stage. So it is really interesting, because performing is such a mental thing, having the awareness that I have two different brains. And when I'm performing on this brain, it requires different things of me than when I'm performing on this brain. That's really impactful.
I think about it all the time. And this might just be because having endometriosis and having painful periods as a teenager and whatnot, I'm like more hyper aware. But my whole life, I remember like Alanis Morissette, doing a huge concert tour. And I just kept thinking, but what do you do when you get your period and you don't have, like, you're doing a year out concert tour, Taylor Swift these days, right? Like you're booked out a year in advance. What, like, do they just take back-to-back birth control? Do they just go get a depot shot so that they don't even have to deal with it anymore at that point? Or are they doing, that self-care and that awareness and taking, and being able to care for themselves and then gas performance? But I've always, like, my whole life, I see women perform and my brain is like, I wonder if she's on her period today.
No, it's so true, because I think about that too, really. But for me, it's really related to like the stress, because I am my cycle is so sensitive to stress. So the amount of stress and pressure that these women are under constantly, especially when they're on tour or in a promoting phase. Because when you're on tour, you're also going to radio stations, you're doing promotions, you're doing interviews in your hotel room, you're constantly doing things. Your self-care time is planned in, maybe if you're lucky, but like, what happens when that plan doesn't go according to plan? Things don't go according to plan, because I know that there's plenty of times when I'm in a stressful season that I need more than what I planned for. And then if I don't take that, it will impact my cycle. So yeah, I would love to know. I would love for more artists and big time female artists to speak out about how they do that. I also watched the show Alone, which is like a survivalist reality TV show. It's amazing. It's legit. It's not cheesy. But I wonder about it for those women too, which they don't really talk about it on the show, which I think they should, because that is, I mean, women have had to deal with that for all of existence, you know? So, but when you're trying to survive in the wild for 100 days, what do you do? I wish people talked about it more, because it would make people feel less alone, and it would give people a better understanding of like what it means to be a woman.
Yeah. And in that self-care vein, what are some of the things that you do? What are some of just day-to-day self-care non-negotiables? But then what are the performance self-care non-negotiables?
Yeah. So I'm still figuring the performance ones out, probably, to create a tighter routine. But mindfulness and meditation is just a huge regular non-negotiable for me. It's just how much I take for that. So when I'm more naturally, when I'm feeling good in the, after my period, when we all love being a woman, generally, like I feel more resilient emotionally. I don't feel like I require as much time in my meditative sit. But if I can immediately start feeling right after I ovulate, a couple days maybe after I ovulate, my brain just starts getting jumbled. And I've sort of self-diagnosed with PMDD with taking like a nosedive after my hormones, taking a nosedive after I ovulate. So I have an awareness of like generally something happens in my brain after I ovulate. So usually around that time is when I start doing at least 10 to 15 minutes every day, every morning of meditation, just to sort through everything, making sure I understand facts from fiction in my brain. And then I have some other digestive health things that I tend to neglect when I'm feeling good. So I tend to tune into the specific vitamins and supplements that I need, getting enough greens, whether it's in my smoothie or making sure I have enough iron, because I tend to have low iron, nutritional things too. So it's kind of like right after I ovulate, I start taking care of myself again, which is really not my goal. So that's something I need to work on, is creating a consistency throughout my whole cycle. But when my brain switches, that's when it starts to scare me, because I think, I just feel like a different person. I feel unreliable. I feel disconnected. So trying to keep that from happening, or trying to keep that in control, is generally what fuels my routines. And then getting a walk in. So generally I'll take, even if it's a 5-minute walk, I try to go outside, do a 5-minute walk, move my body. And I feel like those are the three main, it's kind of like mind, body, soul, triangular priorities, I guess.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think that's pretty common too, doing, having to up the self-care in the luteal phase and in perimenopause, right? So there's those stages that you're going through, and it's, you don't have to do quite as intensive self-care in that follicular phase, ovulation phase, but then ramping it up in luteal is definitely a big thing. And then perimenopause comes around, and it's like, okay, all of those self-care things you thought were at the top of the game, you need to up them again. So
stay tuned.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah. Do you notice, I'm so curious though, like voice, do you need to take extra care of your voice when you're closer to your period too? Do you notice you need a little bit more silent time or anything else? And I know you're just kind of slowly beginning to pay attention, but I'm just curious if you notice performance-wise voice changes, because I've heard that too.
I'm so curious about that. I haven't noticed, but I tend to not pay attention to my voice. I'm really bad about not warming up. I'm bad about just not general like maintenance, not taking good care of my voice, because I just wasn't playing. I wasn't gigging for so long, or there'd be such big gaps in between. And because I'm not like a powerhouse vocalist, I'm very much so a songwriter. So all that to say, I need to focus more on my actual vocal health in general. And I think if I do that, then I'll start noticing the differences. But yeah, the only things pertaining to my voice that I feel like I notice throughout my cycle is when I'm more talkative and when I'm not as talkative. So obviously, like I get more strain on my voice when I'm more talkative and feeling more outgoing and doing things. And so I have to be more careful about I need to vocal rest instead of going out after this show because I have to play tomorrow too. So it's more of how my personality drives my using my voice in a talking or a social sense, whereas the parts of my cycle where I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna be good, I'm gonna want to go home, I'm not gonna want to, or I'll go out but I'm not gonna talk to anyone, then I know that I'm projecting my voice. So I feel like those are the only things I've noticed as much with just my tendencies to like be social or not social and how that impacts my voice.
Oh, I can totally see that. I'm not even a performer, and I can tell when I can talk and I can't talk, or my words are not
Right.
coming out correctly. My brain's slow. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
Katie, go home.
Yeah.
Turn off the computer. You're done today. Whatever it needs to be. This is not going anywhere in a good direction.
Yeah. But I'm very curious just how just hormonally when vocalists should take care of their voice more. So I will probably look that up right after this after this call.
I'll take the moment to plug one of the
Yeah.
Period Coaching School graduates is an opera singer, Manifa Harris, and she
Mm.
does vocal coaching for women specifically
Wow.
to understand their hormones and how it affects their voices and sing. So she works with singers and their menstrual cycles to make sure that they're doing their vocal warm-ups and all those kinds of things and understanding the changes of their cycle and what they need to do and how that affects their vocalizations and whatnot. So
Incredible.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna bug you for her name again so that I don't forget. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, she's great. And she was an early periods coaching school graduate too. So she's been at this for a handful of years now, really kicking butt
Cool.
and helping. So it's been kind of fun to watch. She's also on the podcast. I'm not sure if her interview is coming out before or after this one is live. So I don't know, stay tuned or look in the back, but
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Yeah. I've
yeah.
never I studied voice and or like I was a vocalist at school in college and no one ever talked to me about that, you know? So it's just crazy the expectations for women to feel and operate the same every day. That was what was sending me into depressive cycles because I was like, why am I so inconsistent? What is wrong with me? Why can I not keep up with a routine or what? And then I learned that I literally have a different brain half of my month. So it's just crazy that it's wild that more women aren't educated on what's happening in
This
their
is
minds
where I
and
think
bodies.
music makes the difference, though. Like you were talking about how listening to music in different languages helps you learn languages, right? So we learn so much through music, dance, art, storytelling, these kinds of modalities that we have this opportunity, right? So, for example, I have Spotify and YouTube playlists for the phases of the cycle. And it's
Oh,
just
cool.
music, but it's music that kind of embodies the energy and the feeling and the season of that phase of the cycle. And now I'm looking for musicians who are doing menstrual music to
Yeah.
coin a phrase here. And I would love to see more artists doing music that's, this is my brain in follicular, this is my brain in ovulation, or like this is what, just
Cool.
menstrual music by phase.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just really creating like setting, yeah, what they create in each phase would be interesting too, if there's a pattern to that.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about it in book writing, right? Like that's my modality is writing. So I talk about how writing in different phases of your cycle changes. Editing is not for this time, but it's better for this time.
Yeah.
And, all those kinds of things. And I imagine that music must have a similar ebb and flow that goes along with it. Not to say that you can't create in every phase, but that some things come easier in certain phases, and I'm sure it would be different from musician to musician, but I was a dancer for 20 years. So music is an absolute obsession of mine. And I just keep thinking like how we could do so much with music and the flow and the cycle. And I'm down the road for the menstrual music movement.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's something there. And if more artists would just start paying attention, I think it wouldn't even be that hard to to document or to share. It's really just getting yourself to pay attention that I feel like was the hardest thing for me. It just took me time to take it seriously and commit to it and start paying attention. And once I was convinced, once I was bought in, then it's like, oh, this is just a part of how I live and do things. So I definitely want to apply that to my creativity though, because I would love to just better understand myself in that way too.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. I mean, I remember in the 90s, Tori Amos had the song that there was that line that was like something to the effect of, boy, you better hope I bleed. And coming of age, realizing what that line actually meant, and as a kid, or as younger, you kind of, I'm sure you don't kind of put that together, but you turn into a teenager and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, I remember that.
Right? There's power in having these period conversations in the context of songwriting and storytelling, because that one line is probably the only line I really remember from that song off the top of my head. But that one line was so powerful, and it cemented that song, that story.
Yeah.
Right. So there's so much power that we're not harnessing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what song is that? Because I don't know that I've heard it.
That's a good question. I will briefly mute myself and Google.
Well, I remember the only song I remember ever saying anything about a period is the Shania Twain song, Honey, I'm Home. She says like, this is worse than PMS. Do you know, it's a country song.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and that song is great, but I remember, I mean, that, I think the album was Come On Over, I think, by Shania Twain. And it's a great album, top to bottom, I must say.
It's Silent All These Years. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Silent All These Years. All the Tori Amos fans listening right now are like, what's wrong with you? And the quote is, boy, you best pray that I bleed real soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've got to go listen to it.
She was
one of the best albums of all time.
Really? Well, I mean, I love 90s music. Being raised in the 90s in Texas, it's generally like 90s pop rock or 90s country is everything that I know every word to every 90s country song. But this Honey, I'm Home by Shania Twain song, it speaks of PMS like negatively. Mm-hmm. But it's just still PMS. I remember having to ask my mom, like, what's PMS? She's, like, don't worry about it or whatever. And then which I feel like it could have been such this like gateway opportunity for people to talk about PMS more or something. But instead, I feel like what I got out of it, and granted I was young, was just she's singing about it in a negative way, that her situation is actually worse than PMS. And then also no one's going to talk to me about what it is. So it just created or solidified for me that this is a private thing, even though she was singing about it. So I'd be curious, like, if that was just I don't think Shania writes for herself. So I don't think she wrote that. It probably wasn't like there was no agenda behind it or anything, but it's the only time I ever heard PMS in a song.
Yeah. Well, Tori definitely writes for herself. Let's get her on the
podcast. Yes.
Yeah, you got to go back and dive. But yeah, I feel like we do have all of this power, right? It is such a powerful songwriting tool, especially when you're talking about a woman songwriter to a female audience primarily. There's just so many spots where you really could up the power of something, bringing those kind of moments into it, that I'm loving seeing stuff like what you're doing coming out now, because it's like, oh, we're finally seeing some of the embracing of these ebbs and flows and waves and whatnot. And I'm loving it.
Yeah. I hope more and more women start feeling, I don't want to say, I don't think it's bravery or anything, but I just feeling open. Yeah. Like open enough to put, even if it's a line in a song, like the Tori Amos, it doesn't have, the whole song doesn't have to be about it, but It's just so every woman goes through it. So why isn't it more common to share? And why is it embarrassing? Like
Yeah.
we don't need to be hiding tampons anymore. We don't need to be scared about calling our period a period and having to call it a cycle just because period is going to make someone uncomfortable. It's just so silly. So I agree. I hope that it's just like chiseling away at the whole structure.
I have to think it does. I mean, in 2020, Amanda Palmer did her tour where all of the songs were about miscarriage and abortion and all of the emotion and trauma and everything that went through it. And in her community, she basically called it the abortion tour because she was telling songs about her miscarriages. She was singing songs about the abortion that she had. She was singing songs about the after effects and the trauma and the things. And then the communities, like people that were listening to it were coming out of those shows just like that was so cathartic. It was like somebody finally put to words or put to sound what I had been feeling, what I had been going through. And we've talked about it on the podcast. Miscarriage is way more common than we as a society think it is. And then the ensuing things, which oftentimes you have to have, a D&C for miscarriage, which is technically an abortion. So there's all of these other things that go along with it. And then to have an artist go out and say, like, I'm going to just put all of my heart and soul and trauma into this very taboo subject, and I'm going to tour it. Was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, what a leap forward in the arts and for women and that kind of thing. So I just was, you see those little hints of things coming here and there. And then sometimes you see like a big leap where I feel like she made a really big leap forward. And in these taboo, quote unquote, women's taboo topics.
Yeah. I mean, vulnerability it can be very offensive. Honesty can be very offensive. And I think a lot of people censor their art and censor their honesty to build a career, which I'm not shaming anyone for doing that. I probably have done it myself where I hold back a little bit, but it is very inspiring when you see someone do something that you're like, oh, they didn't censor anything. They're telling it exactly how it is, and they don't care if someone doesn't like it. Like, that's very inspiring.
It is the reason we named the business the Period Coach. It was just like going through names with a friend of mine, and I was like, oh, hormonal balance coach, menstrual cycle coach. And then she was like, yeah, but the taboo word is period. And I was like, done. Let's do it. Then
you don't need to be.
You kind of have to embrace it, which is why we turned it into Period Coaching School versus, something that's a little bit more PC friendly or a little more palatable to the general population, and just went, screw it, Period Coaching School. Let's just call it what it is. We're talking about periods and everything that goes along with it from the first one to the last one. So let's just, right? So sometimes it is the simplest little things that you do and take action that are like your little defiance to the patriarchy, to those little jabs. But if we all do them collectively, we'll get there, right? Which is why I love seeing artists doing that, because that I've always maintained that art is where culture shifts, and moms are where culture shifts, right? Moms teach their kids, and that conversation that you could have had with your mom about PMS, that missed opportunity, I'd love to see moms doing that, but that came from an art, right? That came from a music, that first initial conversation. So I'm really just very passionate about art being that culture shift. And then it sparks those conversations at home. And then those moms and single dads out there doing it on their own can have those conversations and make that cultural shift as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I appreciate everything you guys are doing too. And all the education. That you're
right back at you. All the education in the world doesn't make much of a difference if people aren't embracing it. And that's where I feel like the arts and the education need to hand in hand come together.
Yeah, I love it. Well, even just saying like Period Besties, right? People are like, oh, what's your podcast? Period Besties. And everyone stops for a second and like, oh yeah, oh okay. Yeah. Oh, just having that subtle, I think all of us just subtle ways of saying the word out loud.
The lady at the grocery store asked me about it the other day, and I told her what it was called, and she was like, oh, I have to listen to that.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and your amazing music?
Yes. So I am on every streaming platform that exists. So you can hear the music wherever you stream music. My name it's pronounced Lynsea. It's normal pronunciation, but it's spelled Lynsea. So most of my channels are just Lynsea, but my Instagram is at Lynsea. But I do have my TikTok is at I'm Lynsea. I am Lynsea. So I'm all over the internet. But as long as my name is, if you type in Lynsea, I should pop up spelled the right way.
We'll link it in the show notes as well to make it easy on people.
Yes, thank you.
And is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners? Because we're going to have a little lightning round of questions for you here in a minute. But before we do that,
fun.
Is there anything that you want to share? Any like goodies, whatever, whatnots that you want to put out there?
Yes. So I am releasing, and when this podcast comes out, it should be released. It's a Hormones EP. So my latest single, Hormones, was released in August. And then I am releasing it and putting it all on an EP in different versions. So it'll have the original version, it'll have a Spanish version, a French version, and an acoustic version that I sing in all three languages. So the acoustic version starts in English, and then I start singing in French, and then I end it in Spanish. And then we will also have 2 music videos to go along with it too. So there'll be a music video that is with the acoustic version that we recorded live and filmed live, and then a music video for the original English version. So if whatever your streaming platform is that you listen on, if it allows music videos as well, then you'll be able to view the music videos as part of the project. So yeah, the Hormones EP. I would love for everyone to hear it in all the different languages and the different versions, because it's pretty cool to hear how different the song, like the feelings that are conveyed, just it feels a little different in each language. It's really cool.
I'll be studying the French version.
Yes, yeah.
Someday we'll hear the Italian version.
Oh my goodness. Next year, so I'm trying to really focus on my Spanish and French this year. And then next year I want to introduce beginner Italian and Portuguese, because I do have I have resources and I have friends that are Italian and Portuguese. So I have ways that I can study and practice. And whenever I do a song in a different language, I have like a 3-layer vetting system that I made up to make sure that it goes through 3 different native speakers to ensure that the translation is great and that everything is correct and there's no whitewashing of the language. So I have resources for Portuguese and Italian, and I would love to start learning a little bit of each of those. So maybe 2025.
We will be waiting.
Yes.
All right. So this is just a lightning round. Go with your gut. Tap into the womb intuition. First answer, best answer.
I love it. I can't wait. Yep.
All right. Question number 1. What is your biggest craving?
Oh my goodness. Probably sour candies. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah. There's the Trader Joe's sour candies they're like the little fish. I don't know what they are. I can eat that entire bag by myself in one sitting. That's bad.
Okay. I was going to ask you what you ate to satisfy that craving, and I'm trying to remember the name, because they have it's not the Swedish fish. Like they named it something, they played on the words.
It's like sour swimmers or something. Yeah, something like that.
Something
but you
like
know
that.
the one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's so good.
What's your favorite way to move?
To move? Oh, honestly, I'm the first thing that came to mind was yoga, like cat cow. Like I gotta release those hips.
I love a good cat cow.
Yeah. Start every day with a cat cow.
What's the number 1 self-care go-to when you're stressed out?
Meditation, mindfulness meditation. A good 10 minutes of like just seeing what the heck is going on in your brain. Stop thinking about anything and just see what comes up.
I like that. What music do you listen to when you're working?
I tend to, I don't put a lot of time into thinking about what I'm going to listen to. It'll truly be like the first thing that pops into my head. So, and I tend to do albums. So I'll like think of an album. So it might be like like the Destiny's Child album that has whatever, I forget what it's called, but they're a big one. And I'll just literally listen to that probably 50 times over and over again. Or it'll be a different album, the Lana Del Rey Born to Die album. And I'll just listen over and I'll just put it on and it'll cycle for the 3 hours that I'm working. It's a little psychotic, I think.
I mean, I get it. I put on concerts a lot of time, like a good 3 hour long concert. So it's essentially like,
great idea.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. It's instead of one
I'm
album,
inspired.
it's just the same artist on a concert.
Oh, actually, I changed my answer. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I do have, I have a French and Spanish playlist that I generally add to, like once a week, once every other week, I'll add a few new songs to it. And it's pretty long now. So that's what lately, I haven't been doing that for very long, but lately that's what I've been doing. I turn on my French or my Spanish playlist and just let it run.
Oh, I love it.
So, 2 answers.
Perfect. No, it's great. Favorite country or place that you visited?
Oh, okay. I think I'm going to say Ischia, which is this little island off of Naples, Italy. Oh, yeah, I think that's my final answer.
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
I love going to like tiny little islands outside, like in a country where no one really speaks in English. There's not really tourists there. There's not like crazy things to see. You're just like living life on an island with all these people. So.
Sounds amazing. What's your favorite holiday?
Ooh, okay. First gut answer, I would say Christmas time. But lately, the last few years, my husband and I have kind of been rewriting our traditions, like trying to figure out what our traditions as like a family are. We don't have kids. We have a 6-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog that is my child. But yeah, just like what are our traditions for Christmas time? So it is kind of, Christmas time has always been my favorite holiday. I have a whole Christmas spreadsheet with like a schedule. We do all these things, but it's kind of tricky right now because I don't know exactly what I want to keep in my tradition and what traditions are mine or what traditions are just with society. And yeah, I don't know. It's a little complicated.
Amazing. Food that you hate? Anything you dislike?
I don't like. I'm allergic to shellfish, so I don't like that because it makes me sick.
Understandably.
Yeah, that counts.
Pumpkin spice, yay or nay?
I'm a little controversial on this one. I don't gravitate towards it. I'm gonna say nay, but I won't not drink it if someone gives it to me.
Do you cook?
Oh my gosh. No, it's funny because I was at my Spanish conversation hour last week and we were supposed to describe like a recipe in Spanish that we cook. And I was basically just describing to them in Spanish that I don't cook. I described to them my favorite frozen meal from Trader Joe's and how I make it. That's what I chose to describe in Spanish. So I make salads and then I'll generally make something that's already prepared or whatever. My husband is a great cook, though. He cooks, I clean.
Good combo. Your favorite place to work?
Oh, like employed at? If I wanted to be employed at, or like just place to get work done? Anything. Favorite place to work. We have a co-working space here in Charlotte called Switchyards. It's set up like this vintage 50s office space. I love going there. I get so much done whenever I go there.
Nice. Last question. What's your ideal Friday night?
Ooh. What phase am I
in? That's a good question.
I'm gonna say, assuming that I'm feeling my best, I'm feeling like me, I would say an early dinner at somewhere divey for like good wings, seeing live music, and then getting home early enough to like play a game or watch a show would be kind of cozy before going to sleep.
Perfection. Love it. Thank you so much for jumping on and chatting with us all things menstrual and music and periody. And we really appreciate it. So to everyone who's listening, go listen to some tunes immediately. And thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see all of you in the next episode. Bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties Podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresek, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresek.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.